Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Well, you know what's the big news today, right? Everybody thinks the big news today is we are impeaching the president. Articles of impeachment are going to be placed out. Nancy Pelosi came on TV and made all the networks, they all cut into programming. And guess what? The president is going to be impeached by the Congress of the United States. Okay. For those of you who listen to me all the time, you know what I've always said. Let's forget about impeachment. Let's worry about taking care of what ails America. Let's take care of the things that America needs. Let's take care to make sure that America start hearing the messages. And let me tell you why I said that before all the impeachment, I wanted us to lay the foundation. I think Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have done a good job in laying the foundation as far as what the progressive movement is supposed to be. I think that is important. I think that is essential because all we are going to hear about going forward is impeachment. Impeachment. That is all we are going to be hearing about going forward. Lee Grant, hello, welcome aboard. I think you're on Facebook. I don't think you are on YouTube. But folks, so anyhow, the big news today, and we're going to start the program in a minute as soon as all our channels are up. The big news today: impeachment, articles of impeachment are forthcoming. And you know what? Donald Trump, everybody thinks Donald Trump is in big trouble. Well, Donald Trump is not really in big trouble because more than likely, you know what's going to happen. More than likely, the Senate is going to acquit. But that's not the issue. The issue is, like I said to the people just joining me now, what we wanted to do is we want to make sure that America knows that progressives have a plan, that they're not just out there to impeach the president, but that they are out there to make lives better for everybody. That is what it's all about. That is what we intend to do. That is what's going to get done. Well, anyhow, I have a little piece that I did today because, as you know, I'm not a Biden supporter by any means. I tell you what, let me lay the foundation for what I'm going to talk about first. Do you recall? First of all, let's let people know the impeachment scenario is real. Okay, the Republicans tried to make it seem as if impeachment was not a real thing. They tried to make it seem like this impeachment was just whatever. Well, a professor yesterday made a joke out of it. She made them look rather silly trying to do that. So let me go ahead and play that, and then we'll talk about that on the other side. Check this out.
Today, you're being asked to consider whether protecting those elections requires impeaching a president. That is an awesome responsibility. But everything I know about our Constitution and its values, and my review of the evidentiary record, and here, Mr. Collins, I would like to say to you, sir, that I read transcripts of every one of the witnesses who appeared in the live hearing because I would not speak about these things without reviewing the facts. So I'm insulted by the suggestion that as a law professor I don't care about those facts. But everything I read on those occasions tells me that when President Trump invited, indeed demanded foreign involvement in our upcoming election, he struck at the very heart of what makes this a republic to which we pledge allegiance. That demand, as Professor Feldman just explained, constituted an abuse of power. Indeed, as I want to explain in my testimony, drawing a foreign government into our elections is an especially serious abuse of power because it undermines democracy itself.
The reason I wanted to show that before I got to start the show is a lot of people think impeachment is just that, some crazy thing. Well, this lady, this Professor Kaplan, laid the foundation. Anyhow, let's talk about what the show is going to be about today. What is the show going to be about today? Well, we have Senator Jill P. Carter of Maryland tells why she's running for Representative Elijah Cummings' seat. That's the title of the show today. Jill P. Carter says she is running for the late Representative Elijah Cummings' seat because she did not see progressives who will fight in the race. Jill P. Carter grew up in a family of activists, and she intends to take that to the Congress to fight for the poor, the middle class, and the aggrieved. Jill P. Carter has had a successful career championing for the marginalized and disenfranchised because it is in her DNA, she says. Carter is the daughter of the late civil rights activist, leader, and visionary Walter P. Carter. Carter was the third African-American female attorney elected to serve in the Maryland General Assembly as delegates for Baltimore City, District 41. Former Delegate Carter, often referred to as the legacy, embodies the spirit of her freedom fighter father. So without further ado, let's go ahead and give you Mademoiselle Jill P. Carter. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. We are honored today to have Maryland State Representative Jill P. Carter. Jill P. Carter is currently state senator in Maryland, and she is running for the District 7, where the Honorable Elijah Cummings, we know that he just passed away, and she is opting to run for that district. Welcome aboard, Senator Jill P. Carter. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I understand that, first of all, I understand we have something in common. We were actually both delegates for Sanders in Philly.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, last election, absolutely.
In 2016. Anyhow, let's get busy about talking a little bit first about yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll talk about why it is that you want to run for the district. And if you could turn the speakers down a little bit so that we don't have the feedback. Okay, go ahead.
So, for the last year, I've been a state senator in Maryland, and prior to that, I served multiple terms in the Maryland House of Delegates. And in that was from 2003 to 2016. And then in 2016, I resigned to become director of civil rights for Baltimore City. Lo and behold, and I really thought that I was finished with elected politics at the time because it had been, I'd say, sort of a rough ride. Because I came as a civil rights, a child of civil rights, a criminal defense attorney, very much a justice advocate. And I found that in Maryland politics, even though we're Democrat-led and even though we're labeled a progressive state, we were very, very too slow moving on a lot of important justice issues. So I stepped down to become director of civil rights for Baltimore City, a job that I loved. And an opening came up in the Senate, and advocates and others convinced me to run for the Senate. With much trepidation, I did, because, you know, politics can be, when you're pushing up against brick walls, it can be a little painful. So I was hesitant, and then I got into the Senate, and, you know, as fate would have it, I had a wonderful year. I found the first year in the Senate to be much better than the House of Delegates. I found that because of the timing, a lot of the issues that I had been championing in the House of Delegates were now had ripened. And so it wasn't quite as impossible to get certain things done, things to do with the decriminalization of poverty, allowing for greater expungement expansion in the criminal justice system, multiple other things. And so I've enjoyed the year in the Senate.
Now, I mean, I love what you said with respect to, in as much as you are in the Northeast, in as much as, well, I mean, Maryland is sort of a border state, but in as much as you're in the Northeast, many people think that, well, progressiveness is perfect, and you guys are a blue state and everything is going just fine. Explain to me, what do you see needed from a progressive standpoint to really make the imaginary feelings we have about out there to be real?
So, and first, I want to say that our state is finally changing. We recently got a new Senate president, happens to be a person that comes kind of from the progressive section of the faction of the Democratic Party. He's 36 years old. He's from Baltimore City, and that means that he's replacing the longest serving Senate president, both in the country and in the state of Maryland.
Really?
So I do see change afoot. Um, I think that, in Maryland in particularly, the biggest impediment to progress has been uh, racism, lack of desire on the part of the party and the leadership to address racial disparities. Um, we have an article recently came out that we have the most incarcerated population in the country.
Really?
Those are things that have to be addressed. And so I do think the time is now to do that in the Maryland Senate. I do. And then also, we're about to embark upon the greatest education reform effort, in the history of the state. And so some things are going better than they did for a long time. I do think that Maryland was very much very much into mass incarceration, over incarceration, a lot of unfair systems, like the system, for example, of child support, where dead broke parents that aren't custodial parents were expected to pay enormous amounts of money that they never could afford. And even if they were incarcerated, for example, you get out of incarceration, get employed, you're hit with this mandatory payment for arrearages, and it takes most of your check, and you can never get ahead. That's the kind of thing that I think we're moving away from, in terms of understanding that there's some people that are so impoverished that regular systems that have been in place simply don't work for them.
Draconian type policies. Um, you are you came from what I call the real progressive activist stock. Um, I think people would want to know, there's some big shoes that you're hoping to fill up right now. People want to know that you really have it within you to do that. What's your chops? I mean, your dad came from, your dad did quite a bit. So tell me a little bit about him and what he's instilled in you and you moving it forward.
So my dad was a big civil rights leader. Some say icon. He was pretty much an independent, even though there was a time that he was the president of CORE, Congress of Racial Equality. He left there, and news articles tell me, because he died when I was 7.
Yes.
So I read news articles, and kind of like me and the House of Delegates, the General Assembly, CORE just wasn't moving fast enough for him. And so he started something, an organization called Activist Inc., and they were mainly activists for fair housing. They challenged and protested blockbusting predatory practices in Baltimore, and had a modicum of success. But I think the thing about my dad was that he gave his full life, his whole self, to the freedom struggle. And when he died, I was devastated, of course, but I felt that there's no one else on the planet here to pick that up except for me. And so I really did live my entire life feeling like I've got to find a way to bring equality and justice, really to my city, Baltimore, which doesn't have it to this day. And I never really thought I would be into politics, but I was, kind of guided to run. And to be honest with you, as a lifelong Democrat, it comes from a family that believed, that the super voter family, that, my mom came and picked me up from my college dorm the first time I was 18 to vote, to make sure I didn't forget to vote. We believed very strongly as a family in Democrats. I campaigned for Democrats since I was a little kid. And I believed in the party. And then I was shocked that I got to be elected, and not only was the party not receptive to a lot of things that were justice oriented and the right thing to do, but they actually were very resistant and mean spirited, really, about anybody that bucked the system or sought to bring better change. And so I'll just tell you, my career was, I got elected in 2003. I really felt like, this is going to be wonderful. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawmaker, blah, blah. Shortly after I was elected, I got the information about the number of illegal arrests in Baltimore City, and that was frankly under Mayor Martin O'Malley at the time. And from the years of 1999 to 2006, in Baltimore City, there were 750 arrests, averaging over 100,000 a year for that period of time. And what data showed is that between 30% to 50% of all of the arrests were either illegal, meaning lacking probable cause, or they were for things so minor that people should have never really been arrested for them. Things like urinating in public or trespass or very small things. This is something that I discovered, I fought against. I assumed that when the data revealed what was going on, the Democratic Party, the elected officials, Martin O'Malley would all say, oh, this is awful. This is a human rights violation. We have to change this. Nothing could have been further from the truth. It just persisted. And so what happened is, because of that, I became very marginalized by the party. I bring that up because you talked about the chops. So that started my career, and my career kind of continued along that vein on so many various issues, from the forced submission of DNA upon arrest to implementing slots and gambling, but not creating fair opportunities for regular people. So many different issues that I always found myself kind of at odds with leadership. And I stayed, I fought, I never gave in on these issues. And it was not a pleasant experience for me. But I did it because I felt like, well, if I leave, I'm not sure that somebody else is going to fill the spot. And even though I may not win these issues, I think it's important to raise them. What we need in Congress is a person that's going to fight with that same spirit of advocacy for doing what's right, regardless of how difficult it is, regardless of the level of resistance from the powerful forces. And I don't believe there's anyone else in the race that has that track record or that fortitude. And so I've been born and raised in the 7th District, and I want a fighter for the people. I want a champion as my congressman, congresswoman, and I hope that the mass number of voters of the district want the same thing. I also was a little kid when the first Black congressman in the 7th District, Karen J. Mitchell, was elected, and I vividly remember campaigning for Karen J. Mitchell. And the belief was that if we got Karen J. Mitchell in the Congress, that we would have complete representation, justice for all, and it gave people a lot of hope. And he did not let us down. He, as you may know, as a congressperson in the early 70s, created a budget amendment that required 10% set-asides across the country for minority businesses. So he made a difference that the world, has still benefited from. And that's the kind of champion that we need. And so Elijah Cummings has gotten in the latter part of his career, a lot of credit. He was a great speaker. He was a great champion for what was right. And he wasn't afraid to stand up to powerful forces, such as President Trump. And so that's what I'm bringing. I'm the only sitting senator. I'm the only criminal defense attorney, or I think even the only attorney in the race. And frankly, the only one that's been battle tested to withstand serious challenges and opposition from those in power.
Now, Senator, let me tell you one thing that I found exciting. One of the reasons when I was contacted, I said, I really wanted to talk to you because I think it is time now for us not to keep electing the status quo, not to keep electing those with those big name IDs that people consider the bastion of the Democratic Party, because the bastion of the Democratic Party, for all practical purpose, has failed. those people who have supported them. So the expectation is with warriors going into the Congress right now, that is exactly what we must have. And I'd like to know on policy. We know that you're definitely going to go out there and work for social justice and criminal justice to ensure that it's handled or effected equitably. My question now is, but your task is much larger. Your task is no longer just Baltimore. As you know, Elijah Cummings had quite a bit of power in the House. On healthcare, what do you intend to do? How do you intend to help push Congress to what I call the moral vision of what healthcare is supposed to look like?
So I'm a longtime supporter of Medicare for all. Even before Democrats embraced it, I had friends that were very progressive and from the medical field that had explained to me about a decade ago that Medicare for all was the best possible policy. Clearly, healthcare is a human right, and our current system favors business and insurance over people and even medical health professionals. And so I am going to be, and I've committed to being, a day one sponsor of Medicare for All, specifically House Bill 1184 that's being championed right now by Congresswoman Jayapal. But I think that, there's a difference between people, and we have some now and I'm sure in the current 120 House sponsors, it's one thing to just put your name on a bill and then sit back and say, oh, I'm for it, so that, your constituency or others or advocates can't complain that you're not supporting it. But it's a whole other thing to champion it, to educate people, to fight, to relentlessly fight and use your leverage to try to get it passed.
That what you just you kind of preempted my next question, because what I wanted to say is right now we have the Partnership for Healthcare America that is attempting to destroy Medicare for All by misinforming people, by lying to people. It takes courage for a congressperson who is going to be lobbied to by the health industrial complex to say, to hell with you guys, America, I have a voice, and this is what they're trying to do to you. Are you going to be one of those Congress people who don't toe the line, but when these clowns come into office and say and mislead Americans, you get on TV, you get on whatever networks possible, independent and otherwise, to explain the scam?
Exactly. So the people need champions, in every legislative body, whether it be the Congress or even the state legislators. Too often, all of the special interests have too much power and control for the legislators. And a part of that is because the horrible campaign financing laws. We need complete campaign finance reform. It's actually ridiculous that regular people can't hope to get elected by being great candidates and trying to reach voters when they're up against so much money. And so often it's the people versus the money, and people that get elected are beholden to what I call their owners, donors, and controllers, and they are completely disconnected from the needs of the people.
I love that. Owners, donors, and controllers that have just been added to my moniker as a new moniker. I love that one. But that is so true. Now, and on policies like, we have allowed, when I say we, progressives have, rather, the Democratic Party, not progressives, the Democratic Party have allowed many of the progressive policies to be caricatured, uncontrolled, caricatured without any real pushback. Will you be one of those senators who speak up against that and speak up against those who allow this caricature?
So absolutely, and that's what my entire, so one thing I want to say, I feel prepared for this because of the record that I have in the House of Delegates. Very prepared because of the opposition that I often had to face from the leadership of the party, from even sometimes some of the Democrat caucuses, the Black caucuses, all of that. I've never abandoned principle, or I've always been very cognizant that the people need a voice here, and win or lose, somebody has to stand up for the people that are not here. People talk about the voiceless. It's not that they're voiceless, it's their voices are intentionally silenced in these halls of injustice a lot of times. And so absolutely being a champion is the most important thing to me. Frankly, more than any policy issue, platform issue, it's about character and integrity and fighting for people who need it. Uh, People need the champions. Uh, Again, we too much deference is given to big business, corporations, special interests, and of course in healthcare, the insurance companies run everything.
Absolutely. So now you have a very full, so it's actually a full list of candidates that are running for that positions. Now, is it a jungle primary, or do you the top two go into a runoff? How does it work in Maryland?
Nope. So there's a special election on February 4th is the primary, and there are 32 candidates, I think 7 Republicans, the rest Democrats, a lot of Democrats running. Now, what's interesting is that there's also a special general on April 28th at the same time and on the same day as the regular primary for the seat. So
Wow.
February 4th and April 28th for the special, that only takes whoever wins through the end of the year. We have to also win the regular primary on April 28th to be able to serve the entire term. So it's a lot. And yeah, it's a whole lot. But so I don't believe that there's anybody else. First of all, of the top tier candidates, so to speak, I'm the only one that's actually been elected by the people. Now, granted, my district 41 is only about 1/3 of the 7th congressional district, but there's a former congressperson in the race. He hasn't been elected in 25 years, and there's the wife of the former congressman who is in the race, but she's not a native of here, and she's never been elected by the people. And so, one of the reasons I'm even running is because I don't feel comfortable with any of the other candidates that I want that person to represent this very important district, this very historic district in terms of what it has meant for our communities. We can't afford to entrust it to someone who is not invested in our people and who is not interested in championing our needs. And so there is nobody else in the race that has proven that they will do that.
Now, in closing, what message would you like to look in the camera and tell the folks of District 7, Maryland's District 7?
February 4th and April 28th, I really need your support. I don't look at it as, a race that I'm in. I call it the people's race, the people's campaign. And again, it's people versus money. Even though I'm currently elected, I have never been one that has received big donations. So my donations have to come from the people because that's the only way that we're going to win. I'm not going to get the big PAC money or the big corporate money, most likely. And I think it's important that people have to finance their candidates if their candidates are going to actually represent them. And so I am asking for the vote, but I'm also asking for the financial support, which is critically important to be able to reach all of the voters.
And how can they get in touch with you, Senator Carter?
JillCarterForCongress.com is the website. Facebook, Jill P. Carter for Congress. Twitter, Jill P. Carter. And I think those are the primary ways to get in touch.
Maryland State Senator Jill P. Carter, hoping to fill the big shoes of Congressman Elijah Cummings. I think Maryland has a great choice to make. Thank you so kindly. And any final words?
Thank you for this podcast. Thank you for educating the people. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
Well, folks, that was Maryland Senator Jill P. Carter. She's working real hard to attempt to take over the big shoes of the one and only Elijah Cumming. Well, we're going to have a little bit of fun right now, okay? First of all, what I want to play for you, because this is important. Lawrence O'Donnell, a couple of days ago, did something with Donald Trump. So let me go ahead and play that. And I want you to, I think it is quite a treat. Take a listen to this.
Would you like some nice ISIS fighters? Yeah. I can give them to you. You can take everyone you want. And let's be
serious.
President Macron, I'm sorry, but Donald Trump does not know how to be serious. There are a few intersecting factors that leave Donald Trump stranded as America's clown on the international stage, as he was once again today. Donald Trump is, first and foremost, the most ignorant person ever to hold the office of president. His ignorance appears to be limitless. He has never publicly spoken with any authority on any serious subject, any presidential subject. Donald Trump's lack of real information combines with what appears to be gravely limited intellectual capacity, so that when Donald Trump, as president, is supplied with good information, he is incapable of processing it. He seems like a lost elementary school student who just can't process multiplication or even addition.
Does the United States support these protesters in Iran? I don't want to comment on that, but the answer is no, but I don't want to comment on that.
He doesn't want to comment on that because he has no idea what he's talking about. After he said that, his advisors must have explained to him how crazy his answer was, and so he later today tried to repair that damage with this.
The question was asked, do we support them, I thought, financially? And we haven't supported them. I don't know that we've ever been actually asked to support them financially. And somebody asked, maybe we would, but we support them very, very seriously.
Financially? No one has ever suggested supporting protesters in Iran financially, and no one was asking about financially. That was Donald Trump's demented way of trying to repair the damage of his earlier demented answer. And I use the word demented because that's the word that Donald Trump decided to apply to Adam Schiff today in a description of Adam Schiff that sounded like anyone else in the world describing Donald Trump.
Now, I have to sit back several times and ask myself, for all my good friends, my good right-wing conservative friends and Trump voters, some of my family members who voted for Donald Trump, I must admit, most of my family members who have voted for Donald Trump are kind of quiet now. They don't say much about Donald Trump. I don't know if it's the shame. I don't know exactly what it is for having supported him. But there are some bold people out there that are still enthralled with this man. By the way, folks, this is a call-in show. If you'd like to call, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I would be more than happy to take your call. Anybody who decides to call in. We haven't had any calls recently. A lot of numbers, but no calls. A lot of folks like to listen, but no calls. I mean, I don't mind doing monologues. I don't mind doing soliloquies. I can, you guys know me. I can talk on and on and on and on various subjects. Now, here's the deal. I don't understand. I really don't understand. How is it that Donald Trump still commands? I mean, I know these people are much smarter, than even Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't have much upstairs. I know many people are much smarter, but they feel that symbiotic, or rather that carnal attachment to this man. I guess some people have it, some people don't. But anyhow, the rest of the world, they don't have a problem seeing this man for who he really is. In fact, I think Brother Biden earlier today came out with a hell of a commercial that I sat down and watched the thing, and I'm like, I can't believe he actually did that. I thought I had it queued up, but it seems like I queued up the wrong one. So let me go ahead, and I'm pulling that new one up here. The appropriate one is queued up for you now. And what I want to do is I want to play that commercial. Actually, it's an ad. I always call them commercial, but it's an ad. And then we'll take it on the other side. Here we go. I am not a Biden supporter, but I tell you something. Biden's new commercial attacking Donald Trump is the perfectly well done commercial, and every candidate running should learn something from it. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Everybody needs to have commercials of this type to take care of our thug in chief. Check this out.
World leaders caught on camera laughing about President Trump. Several world leaders mocking President Trump.
They're laughing at him.
My administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
World leaders mocking and ridiculing him for being completely off balance.
Allies are deeply worried about it. They say he's becoming increasingly isolated. Something is very wrong.
The world sees Trump for what he is: insincere, ill-informed, corrupt, dangerously incompetent, and incapable, in my view, of world leadership. And if we give Donald Trump 4 more years, we'll have a great deal of difficulty, if ever, being able to recover America's standing in the world and our capacity to bring nations together.
Now that is a perfect commercial. That is what Americans want to see, a fight. Americans want to see that somebody is going to confront Donald Trump on their turf and on his turf. Remember this?
The Iranians are very good negotiators. The Persians are always great negotiators. They are laughing at us.
Donald Trump, who is laughing at who? They're laughing at you. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take for Donald Trump to realize they're laughing at him. For those of you who I just saw a whole bunch just came in, I'm going to just not play the other part. I'm just going to play the Biden commercial, the Biden ad again. I think I have that separated. Let's see if I do. I thought I did. Well, yeah, I think I did. I think I do. No, I don't. But anyhow, it is amazing, folks. It is just amazing that how should I actually, is that it? I don't think that is it. If this doesn't work, I'm going to turn it off real quick. Here it is.
The Iranians are very good negotiators. The Persians are always great negotiators. They are laughing at us.
That's not the one I wanted to show you. But what I am going to show you is that I don't want to play the whole thing over again. What I want to do is, because we just got a whole bunch of people that just tuned in, and I think they deserve to see this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this one for you real quick. I just queued it up again, and here it is, folks.
World leaders caught on camera laughing about President Trump. Several world leaders mocking President Trump.
They're laughing at him.
My administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
World leaders mocking and ridiculing him for being completely off balance.
Allies are deeply worried about it. They say he's becoming increasingly isolated. Something is very wrong.
The world sees Trump for what he is: insincere, ill-informed, corrupt, dangerously incompetent, and incapable, in my view, of world leadership. And if we give Donald Trump 4 more years, we'll have a great deal of difficulty, if ever, being able to recover America's standing in the world and our capacity to bring nations together.
Man, that particular ad, folk, that particular ad is it's a good one. You know, when you see a Democrat put out an ad like that, you're like, oh, I guess he's going to fight after all, because, you know, highfalutin Democrats generally take the high road and they don't do these kinds of things and so forth. And I was like, wow. Finally, we have Democrats that are going to fight. This is Joe Biden doing this. So, I mean, I want to see what the others are going to do. And I think that, you know what? Joe Biden just went up a notch in my game. I mean, I'm not supporting him, but he went up a notch as far as the fight, you know, because that's what you're going to need. So he went up a bit in my thing. I'm still a Bernie Sanders person who has a sort of a feeling for Elizabeth Warren. Well, actually, I love them both. That's the truth of the matter. And whichever one comes out, I will be supporting, understanding faithfully that whenever or whomever gets into power, the progressive base, which is a majority of the American citizenry, are going to have to engage and make sure that the things that we want effected are in fact effected. Okay, let me go ahead and start answering some of these things here. Let's see. Lee Grant said about mass incarceration that Senator Carter was talking about, that generally wherever there's mass incarceration means there's a whole lot of crime. It is easy to take that simplistic view. I can also make another analogy and say wherever there's a whole lot of crime, there's a whole lot of poverty instituted by bad structures, etc. I could go into Appalachia and say, okay, the reason why there's a lot of crime, the reason why there's a lot of people medicating themselves with opioids, the reason why they're doing all of that is in fact because of our social justice system or social safety net, etc., etc., etc. So Lee Grant, while what you're saying is on the surface correct, right? The reality is a lot of these, there are pressures that create these things, and when you don't look at the pressures that create these things, it turns out that you miss the ball and you can actually create more problems than you solve. Daniel Ledoux says, LOL, it is by no means clear healthcare is a human right, unless you believe one is born with a claim on labor of others. I love the way you think about it. You sure were born thinking that you had a claim on a whole lot of things yourself, my dear friend, Mr. Daniel Ledoux. The truth of the matter is, no, healthcare is a right. Life is a right. Life is a right. Not having healthcare is the absence of, is putting life at danger. It is a right. Moral people believe that. Moral people know that. Moral people have that feeling within them. And when you say, oh, you're taking labor away from somebody else, no, you're not. Labor was created, society created an environment, an economy where you provide something called labor and other things, and we decide how, as a society, how all those things are going to interact. What I wish we could do is create a piece of land in the United States of America where all those people that have these theories of life, of this unadulterated freedom, that we could send you guys, everybody who wants unadulterated freedom, to live in a place where you can have it. I would love to do that. And let me tell you, as the moral person that I am, after you've lived it, I want you back. I would take you back. But I'd like to let you see what it's like, since intrinsic within you, that's a double, I can't say, intrinsic in you, you don't see it. You don't see it. Okay, Sabrina Jacobs, my friend. She is amazing, in fact, Sabrina. She is amazing. She's a true progressive. And what she convinced me of is that in reality, she is the only real progressive in the race. And the reason why is, of course, a lot of people are associated with different caucus and that sort of a stuff. So I think I'm convinced of that. My good friend Lee Grant says Rasmussen reports Trump with a 52% approval rating. And we know the Rasmussen poll, how accurate the Rasmussen poll has always been. Not very accurate. It has a conservative bias, of course, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and have at it. And Lee Grant says, Egberto, you are a closet Biden bro. No, I'm not a closet Biden bro. I don't particularly like Joe Biden because I don't think I don't think Joe Biden is a bad person. I honestly don't think so. Joe Biden is a caricature of his beginnings. Joe Biden is an old timer. Joe Biden belongs in a different century, the 20th century. He's not a 21st century person. Unlike, let's say, a Bernie Sanders who have evolved with the times, Joe Biden has not. Unlike Elizabeth Warren who has evolved with the times, Joe Biden has not. So, no, I don't think Joe Biden is appropriate for our time at all. But, hey, some people do. All right, Daniel Lado, here is the disconnect. Progressives actually believe that that the American people give a what the leaders of other countries think about Donald Trump or America. If we don't have enough Americans who are concerned about what other foreign leaders think about us, then we're brain dead. You know why? Because America is 300 and something million people, maybe 5% of the world populations. If we think we can fly alone, if we think we can do it by ourselves, we have another thing going. We don't. And you see, that is the thing, that is what's promoted by the right that I wish more people on the right would understand. Because I understand how the fallacies can metastasize in people's mind to give them a false sense of superiority to the rest of the world. I can understand that. And that's why there are programs like Politics Done Right, with the expectation that we will get a few conservatives, which we do. We don't get a few conservatives. We get a lot of conservatives who we've actually spoken to their minds. We've not only spoken to their minds, we've made a difference to them. And even though they're not going to become Democrats, because they are Republicans, they are culturally Republicans, they are clear thinking, and they want what's best for their families. They want what's best for their country. They want what's best for their city, their state. They're good people. So, all right, let's see. Daniel Lado says, life a right unless you are unborn. Well, again, Daniel, I think we've gone over that. We have to define, where do we really believe life begins? You believe life begins as soon as the sperm touches the egg. I don't. I mean, the amount of times a woman passes a blast, what is it called? Whatever it's called. I don't remember what it's called when you have that conglomeration of cells. So we just differ in that. And, you know, what can I say? Daniel Lado also says, like a sweet fun camp, can we get re-educated there? No, I don't think you'll get. I don't think we will re-educate you. I think you will educate yourself when you go to that place that of ultimate and unadulterated freedom. I think when you get there, you'll suddenly realize that it's not what you thought it would be. Some people, you know, they have done studies to show the difference between the minds of progressives and the minds of conservatives. I try to tell people, conservatives, liberals, they all have the same inhibitions. I mean, they all have the same, you know, I mean, they're humans. They're the same humans, right? The difference, however, is how they change and how they interpret things. And progressives' minds are more flexible and less rigid. They are more empathetic. And I have a feeling it's just how people are wired. There are some people, however, that are wired that unless they feel the pain, unless they feel what's going on, unless it's their kid who is going through something, they can't see doing well for somebody else. Sabrina Jacob says, Biden can beat Trump in race, but he's another Hillary, which we don't need. Yeah, every single one of those Democrats can beat Trump. Every single one of them can beat Trump. Like I try to explain to Americans that listen to Politics Done Right, every single Democrat, if they run against Donald Trump, will beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump will not be reelected. And I will come eat crow if I am wrong. But everything that I understand about politics tell me that it is impossible for Donald Trump to win again. The fear of progressives, the fear of moderate, the fear of all these other people right now are such that unless an election is stolen, they're not going to allow an imbecile to win again. And I hate to use that word because I don't normally use words like that. But he has crossed the threshold. He has crossed the threshold. Anyhow, so he's just going to win. My contention is what's holding back Democrats right now are Democrats. And Sabrina is correct when Sabrina says it's a great ad, nothing more. She's correct. Democrats are trying to give the semblance of some people being that some people are rather, that Trump can beat some of these guys and some of these guys just inherently will beat Trump. And they want to put a fear into Americans that this election is somehow going to be close. And the reason they want that fear in is because the establishment of both parties are pretty damn similar. A lot of Democrats don't like when I say that. But I love my Democrats. I love my Democrats. I love my Republicans. All right? But there is a difference in policies that we want. But there's not a lot of difference in the policies establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans want. So Daniel Ledo wants a whole far right stuff. Somebody like Sabrina and others want more equitable type policies, what we would call the real centrists or the progressives, what most people want. But what the Democratic establishment and what the Republican establishment want, they are more in tune with each other. Okay, Lee Grant says, I'm interested in these terms, mass incarceration. It suggests that police are sweeping through an innocent population and randomly throwing people in prison. Clearly that is not happening. I think you put that message up there before, Brother Grant. And I don't, look, first of all, your statement is correct. No, police is not jumping out into the field and just arresting a whole lot of people. What they're doing is arresting easy pickings. That's what they're doing. That's mass incarceration and arresting easy pickings. Let me give you an example. If I walk through any neighborhood, right, I can find reasons to arrest quite a few people for breaking some law. Okay? I can. If I go to certain neighborhoods and do that and other neighborhoods I don't, and those neighborhoods that I do in share some characteristic, mass incarceration of a particular person or people is concerning. The Congress or the senator was 100% correct in what she had to say. Okay? She was 100% correct in what she had to say. And notice what she said. She said there were people whose arrests were made incorrectly. There were people who arrests was probably illegal, etc., etc., etc. So we need to know that. All right, Daniel Ledo says racist Democrats are responsible for Kamala dropping out of the race. Boy, oh boy, Daniel. Can I say that I sort of agree with you? Remember what I've preached, Daniel. I'm very honest in what I talk about. I am not a Kamala Harris fan, but I wanted Kamala Harris in that race. I think Kamala Harris needed to be in the first few, at least the first few primaries, because she has something to add to the debate. Okay? So I think we're in agreement there. No, look, there is really no difference between racism in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. There's none. People are people. And what there is in the Democratic Party is the acknowledgement of racism. It's the acknowledgement of multiculturalism. And given that the party is in fact multicultural, the racism of many are attenuated. And you know what happens with attenuated racism? A lot of people whose racism is attenuated as they act into being with others realize, oh my God, we are all the same. And my racism was rather stupid. And they change. They may not initially change carnally, but they change. And that's all we have to ask of people, to change. What happens, however, in a monolithic party or a party that is mostly monolithic is that experiential thing doesn't happen as frequently. So, you know, just think about it. Just think about it. Let's see, Lee Grant, if healthcare is a human right, is not housing a human right? Is not food a human right? Yeah, I think so. I think all of those are human rights. And that's why we have a good social safety net. Actually, right now, we do take care of food as a human right, because if you're You really don't have to go hungry. Well, of course, Donald Trump has just allowed changes in the way food stamps are handled, that he's going to starve a whole lot of people, mainly in Appalachia and other places. But hey, what can I say? A lot of the people who voted for him will realize that he means them no good. Daniel Ledo now says, Lee Grant, sheer numbers do not reflect the reality, disparaging arrest. You know, I love having Daniel, who is probably, he's a conservative, right-winger, the troll, but I like having him here because he gives other conservatives that are quiet a chance to answer questions that are put out there in the conservative and right-wing sphere. So you do help. Lee Grant is, I can know that Lee Grant is measured. Lee Grant seems to want to, Lee Grant wants to get answers. I can see that base, or I think that's what I see with Lee Grant, a good conservative. I see other good conservatives on, not here today, but that are, I haven't seen CSAC here recently, or today, but he's always there. We have a lot of good conservatives. Again, it's just a matter of getting things educated. Anyway, before I go, I need to do my thank you to my folks, to my subscribers, and also request or ask you to consider being subscribers. So here we go. Patrons and prospective patrons, thank you for your support of independent media. Why is it crucial? We are not dependent on the whims of those who advertise on the platforms we use to bring you news, truths, opinions, and empowerment. We ensure that all of those who must have a voice, whose voices have been silenced or ignored, are heard. Those who have messages and narratives to better us all have a place and an outlet to do so. With all the misinformation out there, our platforms give you power. You are integrated into a network where no one has a monopoly of ideas. Remember, Politics Done Right is yours, and you can be a part on the scene or behind the scenes. Thank you for supporting Politics Done Right and our corresponding websites, newsletters, and outlets. Thank you. Well, folks, so I hope you go to politicsdoneright.com and subscribe to us on Patreon, or you can also go to patreon.politicsdoneright.com. Do remember as well, folks, that we have our new t-shirt with Donald Trump asking, begging, please, Pelosi, don't impeach me, don't impeach me. Well, she laid out the articles of impeachment today, but she hasn't impeached you yet, so this t-shirt will be forever a good thing to have. Go to store.politicsdoneright.com. Store.politicsdoneright.com. Pick up your t-shirt. Store.politicsdoneright.com. Be a part. Again, this by getting this shirt, folks, you're helping us continue this show. It's of utmost importance, folks. It's of utmost importance. And if you want to give while you're listening to support the show, just go to Patreon. I always feel it right. Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right. And what I just did is I went ahead and say subscribe at, and there you go. Just subscribe there, and we are ready to tell you that is how, if you want to support Politics Done Right, that is how to do it. Folks, let me tell you, it's going to be tough. It's going to be rough. Because as it turns out, you know what, they're going to throw everything at us come when the election time is coming around. But the only solution we have to the onslaught that is going to be coming, the only solution to the onslaught that is about to hit is you. So please do remember, support Politics Done Right and support all these other progressive sites that are trying to make a difference. Because the difference, folks, you can make. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.